Hello, everyone. My name is Terry Modishead. I'm the Executive Director of the Centre for Legal Innovation at the College of Law, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome you back to our Women Legal Business Founders and Leaders Series 2023. It really has been an amazing series, and this session on From Lawyer to New Law Careerist, how to crush the transition, is, I'm sure, going to be no exception. So really great to have you here. So folks, I will formally begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the lands on which we all gather and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I also extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples here today. With all of that now being said, and we're all settled in, I'd like to, if I may, introduce you to our facilitator for the session today, Mel Lyon. Mel, as folks will know, is the Executive Director and Experienced Designer of Hive Legal, and she is going to introduce our amazing panellists and kick us off today. So with that all being said, I'm going on mute, Mel, and I'm handing it over to you. Thank you very much and welcome everyone again.
Thank you so much, Terry. An absolute delight to be here today to speak about a subject that is very dear to my heart and very much part of my career journey. So from lawyer to new law careerists, I am so excited to facilitate this discussion today. For me, that transition saw me move from being a lawyer to a business development specialist into innovation and then to be a legal designer. I think 10 years or even 8 years ago, no one would have heard of what a legal designer. And so it's really exciting to start talking about all of those different types of new law careers there are out there. But even more important to me is the fact that we can have a discussion today about not just what that journey looks like, but what it takes, especially for us as women in the legal ecosystem, to make that transition, probably to learn some of the tips and tricks that we've all seen through our years and our careers to make that transition. And also, I think, too, looking at how the legal ecosystem has changed and is continuing to change to really assist women to crush that transition and to really enjoy really fulfilling careers. So very excited about all of that, and even more excited about the fact that I have some amazing new law careerists to join us today. So I'll introduce them before we make a start. So first of all, we have Liz Fernando. Thanks, Liz. Liz is the Head of Legal Management at Allens. Lovely to have you here, Liz. We also have Kate Greenwood. And Kate is the National Innovation Manager, Family and Relationships at Lander and Rogers. Hi, Kate.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And our third person is Catherine Thomas, who is the Managing Director of Catherine Thomas Consulting and CEO of Free Range Lawyers. Welcome, Catherine.
Thanks, Mel.
Excellent. So before we start talking about each other's journeys and how we've come to be where we are now, I think it'd be good to start with what we actually mean by new law careers. I know that term is bandied around a lot, and in the last few years we've seen an amazing proliferation of the types of careers that we're talking about here. So Liz, if I could start with you, what sort of new law careers are you seeing?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. It is really interesting. I mean, simply by looking at the panel and our various titles, you can see that new law careers covers a real variety of different roles and areas within law, so law firms and adjuncts to that, consulting and the like. At the heart, I think new law career really has a desire to improve the delivery of legal service. So that's what I think of when I think of new law careers. So looking at new ways of working on and solving legal problems. So that covers the whole range of areas, and certainly my law firm looks very different from where it started when I started there more than 20 years ago. But areas you see today, my area, legal project management, legal operations, innovation and design, you've got business transformation, legal technology. That's just a few. I'm sure others can add more, but there are a range of new law careers, which is so exciting because there's so much opportunity and it will continue to evolve, I'm sure.
Yes, and I love how you've brought in that concept of the delivery and the way that we deliver services, and really, I think, in a way, start to look less like a profession and more like an ecosystem. You know, that whole idea of the client experience and focus, and even employee experience, and how the way that we do it as opposed to what we do. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, Catherine, how about you? What new law careers are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Liz, really broad. I mean, for me, and you're right, it's a broad term that requires definition. And for me, it's about the business of law, and as Liz says, the delivery of law and the ways in which we are matching legal expertise to the needs of our audience. And I think what's really exciting about anything that we can define as new law careers is that we're constantly pushing the boundaries as to what's possible and what's available. So we're looking at, you know, new ways to design legal solutions, new legal solutions in themselves, but also, and this is an area that I'm particularly interested in, new ways of just simply delivering what we do. You know, not that binary, transaction or exchange of emails, but, you know, this exploring the different ways in which our clients can consume legal services. So yeah, for sure, it's a really broad term, and I'm seeing lots of different roles emerging under that umbrella.
Yeah, absolutely, Catherine. I think another thing that's really interesting in that too is that we're starting to see, when we think about new law careers, is emerging between the providers of technical legal skills or expertise and people who have traditionally probably worked in more of the siloed areas within organisations, and seeing a bit more of a merge from that point of view, which is something I'd like to take up a bit more later on. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Kate, how about you?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, as an extension of what you were just mentioning, Mel, I think we've seen a real shift in law firms placing significant value on the role of the internal and non-legal staff. And you know, when I commenced my career, there was certainly no innovation team, and you know, we were supported by other internal groups, but we've really shifted significantly in our reliance on involving those teams in our legal business. And you know, our technology teams are no longer just responsible for fixing the hardware. They're really integral to the practice, and they're really expected to understand what the legal teams require in terms of their service delivery too. So I expect we'll continue to see more of that collaboration with our internal teams.
Yeah. It is interesting, some of the themes that I can see coming from what we're talking about too, and it's actually a term that I haven't used for a while, but now I think back at it, client facing, you know, that whole idea of being client facing. And I think we've sort of, it's a great thing that we don't necessarily think that that's a different thing now that we see so many new law careerists who really are client facing and at the coalface of delivering those services. Great, thanks for that. Now, I'd love to hear from you, and if I can start with Kate on this one, to really for people to have an idea of each of your journeys around to becoming new law careerists, and in that, I'd love to really for you to really expand on the whys and also the hows, and I think probably to reflect on where the enablers were for you, be they people or organisations through that journey. Can I start with you, Kate?
Sure. So I started my career as a graduate at Landers in 2012. And as part of my grad program, I rotated through litigation groups and landed in the family law team. And after practicing exclusively in family law for 6 years, I started to rethink whether litigation was for me. I was struggling with being in combat every day, and I discovered that my favourite part of the job was finding solutions that were creative for clients and finding those solutions quite early. And maybe that was because I was avoiding the litigation piece as well, but it was really that expeditious resolution of their matter that was the most enjoyable part of my job. And at the same time, I became really interested in legal design, and I was always identifying ways or areas of our practice that I thought we could improve, particularly for family law clients who are often, embarking on one of the most challenging times in their lives. And I think for people like me and others that have made the transition, there was only so far that I could take those opportunities or ideas as a full-time fee earner with budgetary pressures. I felt that, when I had these ideas, I'd run with them when I was really quiet. And then as the work picked up, the billable work always took over and the projects fell away. And at that time, as I was evaluating my career, I was, maybe the timing was fortuitous because I was just about to commence my first lot of parental leave. So I had an opportunity to step back at that time and step away from my day-to-day practice of family law and have a good think about where else I could lean into my skill set without the combat life as a family lawyer. And so when I returned to work, I was fortunate that I had a boss who was prepared to take a bit of a leap with me. So I guess going back to your point, Mal, it was certainly internal people at Landers that really supported my transition. And I put a business case together for running our team's national innovation portfolio, which was ultimately approved. And I felt that I had an opportunity, with the experience working as a family lawyer. I knew the law well, I knew the pressures experienced by our team and also experienced by the clients too. So my initial business case focused on quick wins, I'd describe them as, or well-known pain points the group was really crying out to be improved, more business improvements, and my roles evolved since that time. But things like going paperless, we were appallingly paper heavy at that time. It was in 2018. I introduced an electronic filing protocol to support that transition. And helpfully at the time, our firm was also going through what I would describe as an innovation transformation, really. And my role aligned well with the strategic future for the firm. So since then, my role has evolved considerably. Our family law team is made up of over 100 staff, including over 60 lawyers who practice only in family law across our 3 offices in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. So I run several projects. Some are quite small, but effective. Others are quite transformative and impactful and produce significant change. So I'm running a fixed pricing initiative at the moment, which is a really big move for our group. I know it's been around for a long time, but for us it's new. And I'm also running a digital optimization project, which is another really big thing for us. So trying to digitize as much of the client's journey with us as possible. So that's me.
It's really interesting, Kate, and I'm sure this will play out in some of the other conversations as well, but the fact that a lot of new law careers are actually based on fixing situations that don't suit or what might be broken in terms of the way that we've always done things or the way that we've always worked. So a lot of what you're talking about then around that, having that different mindset around changing the ways that we work to make it easier for us to work flexibly or in different ways has played through in your journey. Have you found that?
I'd agree with that. And I'd also say that from a client's perspective, all of our clients are private clients who engage in various other services in their everyday personal lives. So I really felt like we had an opportunity to optimize their client experience with us, and for them to be able to walk away and think that, yes, of course, the legal part was done really well. We know that we do that really well. We know that, look, our clients are drawn to our firm because of our expertise, but how can we really improve their client experience, noting that they engage with other services all the time. So yeah, huge opportunities for us.
Absolutely.
This area. Yeah.
And the flip side of that, improve the employee experience because you're working in a way that works for you. Fantastic.
That's right. Yeah.
Thanks, Kate. Liz, over to you. Your journey.
Thanks, Mel. My journey began what feels like a very long time ago. I was going through the traditional path from law degree to private practice, past to partnership, all of that. And then I was actually going through fertility treatments and struggling with that juggle, and an opportunity came for my husband to take a role in Singapore. And so we decided that was probably a good point in our lives to experience life offshore and have, those exciting times living and working in Asia, and focus on his career. And I moved into a new law career. Then I was in knowledge management for a time while I successfully had my family. And then at the end of our 5-year stint there, it was time to come home. And that was absolutely with a goal for me to get back on that path to partnership and, make my way through the ranks there. So bringing back my small family and then trying to get back on that path to partnership, and the juggle was hard work. And I was fortunate where my husband had said to me, look, I'll be the primary carer. You can focus on partnership and go for that. And it was a real light bulb moment for me to stop and think, is that actually what I want? And I don't think I'd really thought about it too much before. It was almost like it was just, you just keep going. But I really wondered a few things, but part of it was like, is that going to allow me to be the parent I want to be? And the system did seem to feel a bit broke in a sense. I know it works for some people, but I couldn't reconcile partnership with the parent I wanted to be for one part, but the other side of it also was, why don't I want to be a partner? Is it that law side of it that's not calling me? Is there something else? And I would loved my time in knowledge and things like that. So it really just made me stop and think about what do I really want? But I needed that thrust to say, here you go, and then go, oh, actually, I'm not sure that's where I want to be. So then I started looking at what else there was. I loved being in a large law firm. I loved being at Allen's. The people were great. And then I just spoke to our corporate services directors and said, is there an opportunity for things? And opportunities were there. And I think the beauty that we have is that having relationships with partners, knowing how the firm operates, being able to know across, we have, multiple offices. I'd worked in Asia, I was in real estate, so I'd worked across all of our offices with different people. I had really great connections and I guess a good reputation that I was going to be able to transition well into an adjunct role and sort of build the bridge to enable us and in our support role to assist our lawyers and get some credibility there. So it was quite a journey.
Absolutely, an inspiring journey though. One of the things that I've taken from what you've said too, Liz, is that and I felt that personally myself too, when you come to those forks in the road with your career and you have to make a conscious decision, and it can sometimes be hard to think I'm on the road to partnership, or it's easy for me to keep going in a very traditional career, and then to actually make the conscious decision to jump off that does take a great deal of courage too, because you haven't got that delineated career path available to you that you have on a traditional career path. Did you find that? Was it sort of a bit scary in a way?
Oh, very scary. And I think I was lucky that I could come across on a secondment. So my job was always there for me if I wanted to go back into practice. So again, the firm was very supportive of, well, this is new for you, so we'll support you to do it in a way that works. And look, even part of me now still misses the buzz of a deal. But I don't miss the counter that comes with that, which is the stress and the pressure and the lack of control and things like that. So but I also have other wonderful aspects to my current role that are so fulfilling. So it's not that, I guess I want it all in some ways, but there is that. But I think you have to, it's hard to kick that that habit of the deal when you hear all this going on around you and things. But yeah, I think that 1 year secondment and then sort of having to make the call, it was quite an easy call to make.
Yeah, fantastic.
When I saw that the grass was a bit greener for me.
And also, you know, that idea too, I think, of when you can actually have that time to think about where your skills are and what you enjoy doing, where your strengths are and what you enjoy doing. And I think now I see so many people actually having that freedom to be able to think, I can have it all. I can do what I want to do. I can still remain in the law, but I can actually mush together my skills and my experience and do something that I really enjoy doing, which has, I think, been a fantastic development over the last few years in the legal ecosystem. Yeah,
absolutely. And for me, part of what I discovered about myself was I really enjoy the people side of things. And while I needed to do that as a lawyer, there was much more required in managing a team and managing people. And I was finding that I could enhance those skills. And I was loving that side of it, the people management side, that was a lot more enhanced in this role than in practice. So for me, it was a better match.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of people management, Catherine, over to you. Tell us a bit about your journey.
My journey, it's probably going to sound like a bit of a history lesson because it starts in the late 90s, back in grimy, as it was then, Birmingham in England, when like new law and the concept of new law just didn't exist. So when you worked in a law firm, you were either a lawyer or you were an assistant, and therefore subservient in some way. And that was it. And that was the paradigm. So I left uni, and, you know, I was lucky enough to have a kind of good degree and great, you know, from a great place and great grades. And I'd done a lot of placements in law firms, so I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And in the UK, I did a history degree, but you can become a lawyer in 1 year. So I got a place to go and study to do that. And then that sort of gets you a law degree in a year, and then you go and start off on your training contract. So I was all set up to do that. But whilst I was doing these placements at law firms, I just didn't understand how they operated. I couldn't fathom why they were the way they were. And I mean, I was only like 22, you know, so I would be lying if I said I had a kind of framework to critique all of this. I just was like, why is that person writing that and then passing it to that person who writes that and then passes it to that person? But if they just all chatted for 2 minutes, like they could, it just, the whole thing didn't compute. So so then I thought, I'm not going to be a lawyer, but I'm going to go into the profession. So I'm going to be a tax accountant with a history degree, right? So Deloitte, wonderful Deloitte, then let me come in. So I managed to pass the maths tests and all of that kind of stuff, which amazed me. But they kind of said, oh, well, we're bringing you in for client management, not really your technical skills. And so at that time, the Big Four did like almost fast track as well. So it was really tough going. And like really quickly, it just became apparent that I was not going to be a tax accountant, because I had the worst combination of really not enjoying the work and also being really terrible at it. So there was no salvation there. And, you know, talking about those big decisions, mine came really early on in my career, because I can still picture walking in the rain with no umbrella up the road in Moseley in Birmingham the day that I had handed my own notice into Deloitte and said, I'm not going to become an accountant. And you know, it was like something from a Hollywood film in my brain. I mean, we're in Birmingham, so it wasn't. But, you know, it felt so good and it felt so freeing, because I'd gone to the type of university and I got the type of grades that anybody that had got that became an investment banker, became a city lawyer, became a city accountant, but it just didn't feel right to me. And so, sorry, I'm dwelling on this start of my career a bit more because, you know, I think it's really sort of relevant to share with you the context that was. People thought I was absolutely crazy because in 1998 and 1999 there weren't other careers in professional services. If you were not a lawyer, if you were not an accountant, you were a secretary or a PA or an EA, and that was the choice you had. So anyway, long story short, Deloitte were wonderful, and I went and did some marketing work with them, realized I enjoyed it, and then got a permanent role at a law firm, a big sort of national law firm, but based in Birmingham, in their business development department. And I really felt like I'd found my home. These roles had only existed for a couple of years. It was only a decade before that lawyers were even allowed to advertise. So they were really nascent roles. And all I knew was that it felt good. Like, so now I can look back in my late 40s and with all the knowledge and experience I've got and put some kind of structure around this. But at the time, all I knew was it just felt good and it felt like my skills were being used in the right way. So for me in the UK, I worked for one large national and one large international law firm. And I had the most fabulous career in the business of law. I've worked in business development, client management. I've been head of comms. I've led a knowledge program implementing e-filing, which shows you how old I am. And I've done all of that. And to your point, Mel, what really has made the difference is the people around me enabling that. And an awful lot of them were women. And they were women who were 10, 15 years older than me, who hadn't had the opportunity to. And it's not all about having children and family, but this is my journey. These women hadn't had the opportunity to have a high-flying career and also be a present parent, but they were opening up the doors to my generation to be able to do that. And so the thing that made the real difference in all of this was people saying, you're not crazy, you're good at what you do, and you can do this, and you can build a career in the business of law. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I really respect lawyers, and I really respect what lawyers do and what lawyers deliver, but that wasn't my journey. And I'm so glad that I chose the other one.
Fantastic. I love what you say too, Catherine, about that. And when I think, for me too, very early on in my career, I had people who were really progressive thinkers. So, you know, and both men and women. And when I think back and think where new law careers have come from, they've come from the shoulders of those people, you know, being on the shoulders of those people who have basically said, you can do what you want to do, we'll make it work for you. And there have been, you know, structural changes within the organisations that I've worked in, or when I had the opportunity to actually design the organisation that you work in, that are the enablers to allow, especially women, I think, with that flexibility, to take on those careers. And it's not just I might do this, it's actually really that community around you and the progressive thinkers that create that environment. Liz, Kate, have you found the same?
Yeah, I've definitely had really great people around, women who've been really promoting, you know, yes, there's an opportunity here for you to take this on, and a real open mind about, yes, let's do things differently. So I think there is a lot of support there in shaping a better way for the future. Absolutely. Kate?
Yeah, and I'd also agree with Catherine's comment in relation to the women at my firm who are more senior, particularly in our team, who haven't had the same opportunities as I have, and they really do encourage us to look outside the square, give things a crack, work flexibly, all of those ideas that were really novel or non-existent when they were, you know, my age or at the commencement of their careers. So really agree with that too.
Absolutely. Great. Well, that brings me to the next topic, which I've always found fascinating, and I think there are some good reasons why. But when we look at new law careerists, people who are working in all of those different types of areas that we were talking about before, and especially in innovation, there seem to be so many women in those roles. And I'd love to hear from you all about why you think that's the case. And Liz, can we start with you, please?
Sure. It is a really great point to make, and it is great to see that we are doing much better in this space than we are, say, in the traditional law firm partnership. So that is nice that this is a new area and there's a new and better way to do it. And look, it's not going to come as a surprise to anyone to say there's no real one answer or reason as to why that is the case of the prevalence of women in new law careers. There are numerous reasons. And look, hearing the stories from the women panelists today really gives some insight into some of those reasons, so a whole range. But I think you touched on it earlier about that wanting to fix things, so recognising a broken system and then wanting to fix it. Certainly that was part of a driver for me. I love being in the law firm, and I liked the system, but I could see the problems, and I felt that, yeah, that was probably more of a drive for me to fix it rather than just abandon it or run away from it. And I do wonder if maybe that's more of a, do we see that it's the broken system a bit easier because it was built and designed by men for men, and so we see some of those issues and want to get in and fix them? Or is it easier for us to sort of go, hey, let's fix it, and maybe it's more difficult for men sometimes to say let's fix it, and they just choose different paths perhaps if it's not the right way for them. But I think that fix-it mentality is very much something that I hear anecdotally from others working in new law, be it male or female. So I think that's obviously a characteristic that people need to have, but there does seem to be a prevalence, say, within women who really have that attitude. I know I have that personally as well, so you do see that in other aspects of life, but that fix-it mentality, coupled with the flexibility that can come, as I said, like, you know, having this role has enabled me to take more control of my day and my workload, and so it enables me to have the career I want to have, as well as the parent, the wife, the friend, everything else outside of my career that I want to be.
Totally agree with you, Liz. I think one of the things that I think about is the fact that because we went into our careers and we did that transition and we needed that flexibility for different reasons, I think women have really contributed to the change. So we worked out how the system can work to make it easier for us to do it. And I think we've seen such an increase in flexibility and such a growth in new law careers over the last few years. I think it'd be really interesting to see how many more men we see in these careers. I think I see it already. I think it's starting to increase. And I think maybe it was just that at the start, it was more about us actually coming up with the more progressive ideas of how to work. And hopefully that's laid a foundation for us to have more men coming into these career paths as well. Keen to hear from you.
Yeah, I think it certainly has opened it up for that to happen. Sorry, I think it certainly has opened it up, but I also think it's really important that we make sure we don't lose sight of the importance of diversity in new law. So I think that's something else that we need to be aware of gender and other diverse factors as well. Absolutely,
yeah. Kate, how about you? Why do you think it's the case that we've got seem to have more women in these careers?
Look, a couple of things. I think we are used to balancing a few hats, so we seek out the flexibility. I know for me, it was, what I was asking myself, what was on offer for me professionally that would also enable me to continue spinning the other plates that I've got going on. I also think we're really good at supporting each other, and there are so many networks available to people in this space, and people in the space are really excited about the changing landscape of lawyering and are really encouraging of others to give things a crack. So I think there's a couple of things there. And, as an extension of what Liz mentioned. I think women are naturally curious and used to or excited about doing things efficiently. So I think that, you know, ties in with what Liz was talking about in terms of that fix-it mentality as well.
Absolutely. How about you, Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, echoing both, you know, what Liz and Kate said, and you know, just because things have always been done a certain way doesn't mean that they need to be done that way in the future. And I think all of us live in a world where we assume that the structures that we're existing within, we just inherently assume that the structures that we're existing within are almost kind of laws of nature. But they're man-made, and I use that phrase advisedly. It's not a political point to say, you know, that the old world of work was made by men for men. It's just fact, right? And women have had a more prominent place in the workplace just at the same time that the market for legal services has changed. So, you know, when we talk about new law careers, we've had an opportunity as women to shape a part of the legal profession kind of from scratch in a way that works for us and resonates with us. So, you know, when I go back to the 22-year-old me, not really understanding why these law firms operated in the way they worked, there are multiple factors there, but one for sure does have a gender lens over it, you know, because as Kate says, we're very practical, we're very pragmatic. And I'm like, but why do you do it this way? It would be quick and easier this way. But actually, the way that it was done reinforced power structures and tradition and restrictions about who can do what that worked for the people that were operating within the system at the time. So I think what's really, really fascinating is that we are seeing more women in new law because it is new, and we can create something that works for both genders, not just for one.
Absolutely, Catherine, and I'm going to come back to you on this because it leads into the next area that I want to explore a bit around, and that is what's going to be new in new law for new law careers. And from there, I suppose I'm keen to hear about where you think the momentum is, but also in particular, those structural or organisational changes that you see will be coming up because of that, you know, as we've said, laid the foundations with the new law careers. How are organisations going to change if that continues?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. I guess the kind of foundational point I would want to make is it's, you know, the practice of law itself is changing. So what constitutes the practice of law, what constitutes legal advice, all of that, as we know, is very much up for debate and it's far more fluid now than it was previously. So, you know, whereas in 1988, 1989, in my early days, you know, there was regulated practice that had very clear guardrails and very clear parameters. We're not seeing that now. And so to your point, I think you made earlier, Mel, then one of the implications of that is increasing fluidity between the practice of law and the business of law, or the practice of law and new law, whatever we want to call it. And I think that's really fascinating for people who are qualified as lawyers, and also people like me who have entered the profession, you know, via a different route. And then I think that then has a knock-on effect to value and power structures. So, you know, I mean, I remember it was a few years ago now, but one of the big lateral hire moves back in the UK that everybody was talking about was a team of legal project managers, I think from Herbert Smith Freehills moving somewhere else. I forget the precise details. The details don't matter, but actually it was the first time that it was big news that people who weren't practicing law itself were moving from one organisation to another. And whilst I kind of look forward to a world where we're less hung up on hierarchy and power, it is a reality to a degree of the way that we operate. And so I think you know, one of the implications of all of this will be that the status of these roles and the value of the skills that we can bring, you know, will be really increased. A lot more fluidity between practice of law and business of law, and then real changes in leadership, you know, within law firms, but also within allied businesses as well. But particularly if we're thinking about law firms, you know, again, it used to be a lawyer who rose to the top as managing or senior partner managing a firm. And I think there's a recognition now that firms are corporate organisations that require professional business skills to operate. And so I think we'll see a world where if not people who aren't lawyers, people who aren't using practice of law skills are leading those law firms. So I think it's, yeah, really exciting and a lot of change, particularly at the moment.
Absolutely, and it will mean very different structures for firms, whatever, you know, in terms of what they will look like. We'll talk about career paths a bit later on, but also it's almost like that push and pull between what clients are requiring in terms of the skills and what they value in terms of not just receiving the legal advice, but how they receive it, and more of a holistic service, I suppose, and how that's going to change organisations. Kate, are you starting to see some of that already?
Yes, for sure. Mel, I think that it will be clients that are really driving you know, the changes and the expansion of the new law career opportunities. I know at Landers we work side by side with our clients in solving their business needs as well as their legal needs, and that has necessitated the involvement of non-legal staff, for example, in UX and data analytics roles, which I suspect that type of service delivery will continue, and it's certainly a really big change from when I started practicing. I also think, you know, given the pace of change, even this year alone, there has to be some evolution in the way that firms enable and introduce generative AI opportunities. And I expect that those opportunities will be driven by new law careerists. And, you know, it'll be really interesting to see and hear the insights collated by Terry and the team following the roundtables that Terry's been hosting, and to hear how professionals see their roles changing given that uptake. And I also think, you know, it'll be our people as well that demand or expect opportunities. And I was fortunate enough to land in my role after expressing an interest in or something that I was passionate about, and something that I thought would offer considerable value to our team as well. And I'd like to think firms will continue offering the same opportunities for lawyers who want to make a change or are interested in pursuing something that's a different trajectory to the normal or traditional legal path.
Absolutely. I think we're on the cusp of a lot of change, agree, around the generative AI, but also I think, that the whole idea of career paths and how that's all going to interrelate now when we think about the traditional structures of law firms, and we've almost had separate career paths, and now they're starting to, you know, integrate in terms of the services and what people can do within those firms. Liz, what do you think?
Look, I'm seeing some really interesting things. The role of the lawyer obviously is changing. They're needing to be a lot more tech savvy and needing to move in certain ways. And then you need the people there to help them to get there and support that. So there is a lot of change. And as I mentioned before, the different groups we have at Allens has changed very much from what it was 22 years ago. The size of our legal technology team, which used to just be IT, and now there's a massive IT department, but there's legal technologists, there's innovation team, we've got a legal product lab. There's so much, and there's so much interplay amongst us all. We've also talked about different career paths. We've had our inaugural legal transformation graduates come through this year. So that was a new program for us, which is fantastic. So these are graduates may or may not have a law degree. I think our two do, but already had that foresight to say, yeah, practice isn't where I want to go, but I want to be in law. And so they have opportunities to work in our innovation, legal project management, legal technology teams. So it's really wonderful to have that, so that they're new roles that are being created all the time. Yeah, like I said, lots of different departments. So it's a different way. And I also think we've got, I've moved from practice into this role. I think there's going to be less of that moving from practice to a role and more specialised. Yes, you work in legal project management, you might not necessarily come from practice, you might just go straight into that role with different skills. I think there's a lot more of that going on too.
And I think it will be a challenge for more traditional firms and organisations to manage that change. Do you have any I suppose reflections on how you see it working in your organisation, Liz, that would make it easier for that transition?
It's interesting you say about some of the tradition versus the new sort of way. Like there are some firms where, your head of legal technology might be made a partner. We haven't gone down that path. So we're still sort of have that you need to be a lawyer to be a partner sort of mentality. It's interesting to see how different things are going. I think we shouldn't also, my perspective obviously is from a law firm, but as Kate was talking about, our clients are driving a lot of this as well. And even within our client organisations, they're structuring with their legal operations and things. And so you've got legal operations talking to new law career people in law firms to work a better way for the client and the law firm to work better together. So there are some challenges there as well for ensuring that we've sometimes got to bring the lawyers on the road, because they're like, what are you talking about, all this data that you're wanting and the reporting that you're wanting done? It's like, yeah, we understand what they're after, and so it's a lot more working together. And I think there's a challenge sometimes for the lawyers who are no longer in control of that necessarily. So that can be a challenge as well, to know that there's other ways that our clients want to work with us, and that needs someone else to instigate and to deliver a lot of that can be a challenge for them to trust the hands of someone else.
Absolutely. And Catherine, from your point of view and what you're seeing, obviously with Free Range, you get to talk to a lot of firms and organisations around the types of skills and resources that they need. What are you seeing from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do is talking to lawyers who are considering or have just gone out working independently. And I guess the main trend I'm seeing in that regard is not a desire to turn away from practicing law. I think at the core, a lot of people feel being a lawyer is a really great job. A lot of people will say to me, I love the law and I love doing the work. But what they don't want necessarily, or those people that I speak to, is everything that comes around that. So for some of them, that's the additional management responsibilities that come with being a senior lawyer within an organisation. And I think that will be, to Liz's point, we will see that changing as we have more people helping the lawyers to deliver their work product. So, I see that is changing within more traditional practice. But for others, and to be brutally honest, they just don't want the vibe that comes with practicing law in a more traditional way. I think that's the best way of putting it. And I think we probably all know what that means. And so I won't spend time on it, but just that general feeling and sense and way of behaving towards one another, that is still the expectation in a lot of environments, not all, but is still the expectation in a lot of environments. And so, definitely seeing kind of a people feeling freed to be able to say, I want to do what I do well. I want to do my work, but I want to do it in a way that feels good for me.
Totally agree, Catherine, in terms of that. I think that's personally where I landed too. It was I love doing this type of thing, and I think we've now got a lot of opportunity for people to mould their careers in a way that was very different from how it was when I first started practicing. And you can, when we look at the ridiculous number of different types of careers that we can have and different skill sets that we can put together, you can really design a career in the law that plays to your strengths and what you want to do.
Totally. And a lot of the lawyers that work through free range lawyers have portfolio careers. So they will be, some of them might have their own direct clients, some of them might be doing assignments, you know, through whatever vehicle. But then they're also lecturing. You know, they might also be consulting to a legal services business, but not as a lawyer. So you're absolutely right, Mel. We're just seeing so much more fluidity and so much more opportunity to have a unique career that doesn't look like anybody else's. You know, I remember when I started at Deloitte, one of the things, and it's not Deloitte, it's any organization like that in the late 90s, but you know, that description of like, you move closer to the window the more senior you get, and you know, you will move to this seat in 1 year and this seat in, and I remember it just filled me with horror, that sense that there was a path, that I took a step every year, and that isn't the case anymore for our lawyers or our accountants or anybody else. They can say, this is who I am, this is what I enjoy, this is what gives me energy, and I'm going to create a working world that gives me that.
Absolutely. Yes, so much more flexibility in terms of the directions that people take now. And I think we can thank a lot of people who have broken the mould early on and created the opportunity to do that, many of which I think were women looking for flexibility and different pathways to do it. I'm going to just do a shout out now. If anyone has any questions, if you'd like to put them in the chat, we can answer those questions. And while you're thinking of those questions, I'm going to do a question without notice to the panel, and I might start with you, Kate, but it's just a quick one to finish off in terms of what you would see people should think about, or how they would approach actually coming to that time in their career when they think, right, I really want to make a change, or I really want to start looking at what a new law career might look like.
A couple of things. I would really encourage people to reach out to the multiple networks and connect with as many people as they can, you know, using social media, connecting with the centre. There are so many wonderful groups, Alta, Walter, that are really supportive of people who are looking to change. And, you know, I would encourage people to look outside of their firm to make those connections too. I think that's really important. And I think a lot of people, most of the people on this panel, including myself, did have that opportunity to take a step back and a little bit of a breather from their day-to-day practice. And if people have that opportunity, it really does give you that time to think. So yeah, that would be my suggestion or my experience.
Thanks, Kate. I think hopefully people will agree with me. I think the NewLaw Careerist community is extremely generous with their time and their encouragement, because I think we are all very invested in seeing the legal ecosystem evolve even more to create these types of careers and fulfilling careers for people. So I totally agree with the community and platforms that we have to share experiences with. How about you, Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, echoing that point again, you know, that new law versus traditional, like we do have that all boats rise mentality. And so, you know, the community, just when they see somebody doing something great, really enjoying what they're doing, there's such sort of support and applause for that, rather than a sense that, you know, we have to step on others to get ahead. So it just really, echoing that point, you know, reach out to your networks, reach out even to people that you don't know, and just explain to them what you're considering, and whether you know, ask whether you can chat to them or whether they can put you in touch with people. like I guarantee, I moved here 7.5 years ago and knew nobody, and that I found the New Law community in Australia to be just so warm and welcoming, and you know why I'm here today. I think the other point is perhaps a note of sort of realism or pragmatism is, you know, if you're thinking about switching careers, make sure that you have a concerted look at who you really are, what brings you kind of joy and energy, and have a realistic look at the kind of options that will give you that, and also be, you know, this is not nirvana, right? There are no career is perfect. And because we're all so enthusiastic, and yet, you know, for us, we're so happy operating in this way, you know, sometimes I think we can forget to just sound that note of caution. So, you know, if you are somebody who does enjoy intense competition or does enjoy hierarchy or status, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but be realistic about that and ask yourself whether that, you know, a switching career is going to be right for you. So I think just being realistic, and making sure you're for sure aware of what you're going to gain, but also aware of what you won't get if you go into a new law career.
A good point, Catherine. And I can remember the day I gave up my practicing certificate, and I still think about it, but no regrets. No regrets. Yeah. What about you, Liz?
I haven't had a practicing certificate yet. I haven't got to that point for you yet. I still keep it there based on the work that I do. Yeah, I think Catherine makes a really good point about the realism of things. But look, we spoke about the diversity of roles within new law, and I think that's a really wonderful thing, that it's an opportunity for people to really think about what their where their passion lies, what they do and don't like about aspects of the legal industry, and of, you know, what they might be doing now, what skills they can bring, because of course plenty of new law careerists come from non-legal backgrounds and bring those other skills into what the legal industry needs. So, you know, from a project management perspective, for example, bringing technology and making it legal technology, and all of those business analyst skills. There's loads of things that people can bring in. So really have a think about where your skill set is, where your passion is, what's going to drive you. And as you can see, there are plenty of different roles there. So there's a real opportunity to design the role that you want to do and sell yourself to organisations looking for those skills.
Absolutely. And I'm going to look at Terry now and say, we have got a question here. Can we keep going for a few minutes, Terry? Right. Okay. So, and I love this question, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the answers. Talking about how we communicate the value of new law careerists within our firms. So, you know, I think it touches on the point that you said before, Catherine, around what lawyers might bring in terms of value, but then really how do we show that new law careerists have a real value to contribute to our firms? Please, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. Very close to my heart. For probably the best way we've had is the client feedback, where we've had an impact on working with them, and taking that client feedback and talking to other partners about the success that we've had, that resonates really well. So that's where we can often show the value of what we do, but also just the lawyers giving the feedback and partners giving feedback, and then sharing those stories with others. So it's a lot of storytelling, it's a lot of case studies, it's just talking constantly, and you know, a big part of my role is presenting to the different practice groups on the types of things that we can do, and showing them what we've done successfully on other matters and how we can help. And a big part of what we do, it's about the delivery of legal service, and that, of course, that it's how the client perceives the delivery of legal service that's really important. But a big focus for us also in legal project management is the experience of the lawyer in delivering that legal service. So making sure we've got the right resources on the matter, that they're not doing tasks that they should be doing, that someone else should be doing, that we can keep them focused on the things that are most valuable for our clients and most valuable for them in their roles. So storytelling, I say, is really a great way of being able to show your value and get that.
Absolutely. And if I can jump in and say from a point of view of value, it is actually being able to articulate the value that you're bringing beyond what people might assume is just the value, which is the technical skill. It is, as you say, Liz, the delivery of it and how that experience has been improved through the delivery of it. So I think NewLaw Careerist can really contribute to that. Okay, with that, and seeing that we're over time now, I'm going to say a huge thank you to Kate, Liz and Catherine for all of their contributions today. It has been amazing to hear them and your insights around the role that we play as women in new law careers and the transition side of it. I'm really looking forward to what happens next, because I think it is absolutely evolving area. And I will throw back to you, Terry.
Thanks, Mel, and thank you, Kate, Liz and Catherine. Let me just add, fantastic conversation, really important conversation, I think, right now with so much changing and transforming in our space. And, you know, I was thinking as you were speaking that, you know, new law careers in a way are almost serving a dual function. On one hand, they're reflecting the change, but on the other hand, driving it. And I just think that's a really interesting place to be in. I was going to wrap, Mel, by giving you really quickly what I think I've picked up from this in terms of what reflects the old and what reflects the new. So kind of one versus the other. So here I'm going to go. I'm going to throw them at you. Hierarchy versus equality. Tradition versus innovation. Authority versus autonomy. Control versus collaboration, linear versus portfolio careers, outputs versus hours, and seeing each other not as competitors, but colleagues, which also leads into those issues around kindness and empathy and changing the work environment in which we all live. Again, fantastic discussion. Folks, I know that you will have questions afterwards. And I also know, speaking to the generosity of the community, that everyone here you'll find at the very least on LinkedIn, if not in lots of other social media places, and they would be very willing. You see, there's lots of nods there as I say this, very willing to chat with you afterwards if you would like to do that. And of course, there are lots of free resources available on the CLO website. So there's a whole section on new law careers, if you want to go visit that. And if you want to try out a few tasks in some of those new law careers, do please visit the College of Law and CLI and Forage virtual internship program, which is available for you to do that as well. So folks, thank you very, very much again. Really, really looking forward to seeing you back in this series, and looking forward very much to those of you that will reflect and listen on this, reaching out and really building that community that we've been speaking about and being an active part of it as well. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and really look forward to seeing you next time. Bye now.